Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome to a Comic Crusaders presentation. Normally, this is going to be our Tuesday top 10s. Normally, there's articles, but this is special. Decided to do a video for you. We put a lot of work into it, and I'm very happy to present it to you. I'm Nemesis. I'll be your host for today, and this is going to be the Comic Crusaders top 10 acronymed organizations in comics. And I'm very happy to be joined by my good friend and my fellow Crusader, Steve Shadewing Sellers. How you doing, Steve?
Doing pretty good. Looking forward to dissecting all of these letter organizations because there are a million of them, and I keep remembering new ones every other minute.
Yeah, it was really difficult. As I was going through this, I was trying to go through and dissect some. And then we were talking beforehand. You brought some up that I missed. So we're going to go through this top 10, and then I'm going to let you throw in a couple I missed. And I'm sure all of you watching out there are going to have yours. You're going to be like, how could those two not put that on? So, yeah, bring it on. Let us know in the comments if there's some that we missed or if there's some that you liked on here. So, but that said, are you ready to get into this?
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, I think everybody knows that I'm kind of a fanboy for Dark Horse Comics and Mike Mignola and his whole Hellboy stuff. So my number 10 starts off with it's little known unless you're really into Dark Horse or Hellboy, but I like this. It's the Special Science Services, and it's basically the Soviet Union's equivalent of the BPRD. More on them later. So, and here we go. You know, the SSS was created by Mike Mignola, and its first appearance was in a story, Hellboy 1948, which led then straight into Hellboy Hell on Earth.
It looks like 1946.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 1946. My eyes are going, geez, getting old. And, you know, we're going to go ahead, and this is the general format we're going to follow. You know, we'll just talk a little bit about who created it, first appearance in the comics, and then some notable agents. And I have left my notes over there, so I'm going off the top of my head. The first one I got here is Varvara. And Varvara is interesting. Basically, she was possessed by a demon and became the director of SSS for a while. And she was instrumental in bringing Rasputin back. Actually, she is the illegitimate child of one of Rasputin's children, I believe, and was a pawn of the Ogre Jihad at some point. So, do you know much about the SSS, Steve? Or
not really. I've read quite a bit of Hellboy, but I haven't read like a lot of the offshoot titles, so I've missed these guys. I really like this idea, though. The idea of a Russian counterpart to the BPRD is really, really cool. So yeah, maybe I should dig more into Hellboy. I've got a bunch of the Mignola stuff in collections on Comixology, so I need to get back to them.
Cool. Yeah, it was really interesting their relationship with the BPRD as well, because as we go through these next few characters, it's kind of they cooperate at times, but they also are definitely at odds at times as well. Especially when you talk about that last guy there that I'll bring in a second. So the second guy is Yosef, and Yosef he was brought in by Vavra, and now I've got to stretch my imagination here because, like I said, my notes are laying about 10 feet away, and I don't want to go off camera. So, but he was a Soviet soldier, and basically he's undergone experiments and things like that. He was found dead in a Soviet submarine by Abe Sapien. More on him later, and eventually came back to life. And then was instrumental in overthrowing Varvara later on after Hell on Earth. So you got all that going on.
I will say that Mignola really comes up with these great visual designs for these characters, even if I don't know them. I can totally, that is a distinctive looking character. You remember this guy.
Absolutely. And then this last guy, Dr. Lazar, he looks really innocuous here, but he is one, especially in some of his last moments, BPRD and the SSS were actually fighting. And he has this ability, he has writing all over his body and can channel all these occult powers. And he has like this snake avatar that's with him all the time. So he's kind of a shady character and a scientist, part of this Soviet science symposium. So it's really kind of cool.
He looks like the Russian John Constantine, and that by itself gives him some cool cred.
Yeah, definitely. So that's the SSS. So then let's move on to number 9. And number 9 is Marvel's first entry here. And I have to say, like I said, when I was picking this top 10, I really tried to go off of things that I knew right off the top of my head, and that I think that many comics fans or the average person would know. So as we get down lower down on the list, like my wife, who is not a comics fan, but she does watch some of the shows and stuff, can tell you the first 4 on the list. So that's kind of how I was judging it. So Armor, the alternate reality monitoring and operational response agency, and was created by Fred Van Lint. I don't know a lot about him. I've seen some of his work.
Yeah, I actually talked to him not that long ago with Al and some other people. We were talking about the play that he had done with his wife about Jack Kirby's life. I mean, this is a guy who knows a lot of stuff. I'm actually kind of a fan of his. I really did enjoy a lot of his Marvel stuff. The work that he did with Greg Pak on Hercules was very good. But I'm a huge fan of the Scorpion, who was a character that he created for Amazing Fantasy. And anybody who knows, like Spider-Girl, Anya Corazon, she appeared in that book. Scorpion came in like right after, and the story's called Poison Tomorrow. Look it up. I believe it's on Comixology, and it's quite good. Drawn by Leonard Kirk.
Very cool. So first appearance of Armor was in Marvel Zombies number 3, or Marvel Zombies 3 number 1. Excuse me, I misspoke. Notable agents. I do know this character, Portal, Charlie Little Sky, a Native American character who's able to open portals. Basically, why he was put in charge of Armor in the first place.
Yeah, that's a really great obscure pick because I remember like way back he appeared in an issue of the Avengers. I think that was his first appearance before he showed up in Darkhawk. And basically, he has the natural ability to open time portals. He basically aged up. Really cool character.
Yeah, definitely. And then I know that Morbius was involved at different times, and I think an alternative version of Morbius was actually acted against Armor. So when Armor was trying to close the portals or stop another dimension from bleeding into their dimension, I think there was an alternative version of Morbius as well, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
Okay. I know that She-Hulk was brought into the fold to do some stuff, as well as Jocasta Pym. I know Machine Man was part of the original lineup, I believe, and then I can't say that he was officially a member of Armor, I believe, but I think he cooperated with them at times. Hellstrom.
Yeah, I don't know too much about the affiliations of them, but this is a really obscure, or I wouldn't say obscure, but I would say very B-list sort of group, and it's the kind of group that I would expect Van Lent would put together. It's really great. He knows the obscure corners of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting, and as I was researching this, I have to say, I thought that this would be, I'm not going to say easy or quick because, that's not how I judge stuff, but I thought that I would be able to pound this out and know my stuff. But I had to do some deep dives here. And so I learned a lot as I was going through this and actually read some of these books to try and get familiar. So it was very interesting to go through this stuff. So,
yeah, I'm not too familiar with this particular group, but it is a great lineup.
Cool. Number 8, OMAC. Now, I have to admit that the reason OMAC is on here, I was familiar with the OMAC, for a while. I knew Buddy Blank from back in the comics. That was how I knew OMAC originally with the Global Peace Agency. And but then when he was brought into Batman the Brave and the Bold, I definitely got a lot more into OMAC. I thought he was kind of a cool character in that. So, I mean, I'll be honest, that's a lot of the reason why OMAC came in here. And then I started looking at some of the new stuff that they've done with OMAC, which I think is kind of cool. I wasn't aware of all they had done with them. So, but OMAC was created by the legend, Jack Kirby. King. Yeah, definitely. And the first appearance was in OMAC number 1, way back when. I don't have the exact date offhand. Now, what's interesting here is you'll see down below that they only have 2 agents listed because OMAC had the original OMAC was one person. It was Buddy Blank. And he was an agent for the Global Peace Agency with Brother Eye, and became OMAC. And then eventually it transitioned into this guy, Michael Costner. Yeah, Costner. And then you had the OMAC cyborgs, which is now what they're really doing. In fact, they've kind of become almost a antagonist as far as what I can see.
Yeah, from what I can tell, I mainly am familiar with the Kirby stuff, which I believe was in the mid '70s, but again, you have to double check me on that. The Buddy Blank stuff was really, really interesting, but I just love the idea that you don't need like a whole group because the whole idea is they're a one-man army, so they go in and do that. You don't need anybody else. It's just this one dude. And he's just like, such a powerful super soldier that, he just gets it all done by himself. I'm not really familiar so much with the new stuff, although I do remember the OMACs from the OMAC project, which I believe was around the time of like Secret Six and things like that. So I do remember a little bit from that, but I haven't really kept up with the new stuff.
It seems like it really made a comeback during New 52. It looked like Jeff Johns did a lot with it, or did some with it. You were right.
And as well.
Yeah, Kirby did create OMAC in 1974. So
yeah, that sounded right.
So and
just after the new guys.
And what was interesting to me, now that I brought that up, one of the things I remember when I was reading this was that when New Gods got canceled, he still had a contract with DC for 15 pages a week. And so this is what he came up with to fill his contract until he left DC Comics. So
this for Kirby is a minor idea. It's still amazingly imaginative, which I find hilarious. Like his worst idea is still better than most people come up with today.
Exactly. He was like, I'll give them something to take up my time until I can get out of here. And he came up with this. So. All right. Number 7. This is a relatively new group in my research. From what I found, I believe, don't quote me on this date, they first came into being in 2006, which is interesting, which means they pretty much went straight from the comics into the Arrowverse. So, so Argus, Advanced Research Group, United Superhumans. They originally started as a group. It was during the New 52, created by Jeff Johns and drawn by Gene Ha. And the first appearance was in Justice League number 7. And originally this was created because it was right after the first stuff from Justice League of the New 52, the Dark Side attack. And so Steve Trevor was the liaison to Justice League. And so this group served as that. And then it's interesting that it transitioned, and then it's kind of stayed that way in the main continuity. So, and we'll see that with the agents here. So we started out with Steve Trevor. Everybody knows Steve Trevor for the most part, associated with Wonder Woman, Air Force pilot, Colonel. And then we get the lady. Amanda Waller comes in. Task Force X eventually got folded into Argus, which was interesting. And then Sasha Bordeaux. I don't know a lot about Sasha Bordeaux. I know a little bit.
Yeah, I know a little bit as well. I know that she's like a major character created by Greg Rucka. And she's basically started like in Detective Comics pre-52 during his run on that. And she's just one of those characters that he loves to bring back on everything he does. Cool.
Yeah, and then Black Orchid. I know this character a lot from Justice League Dark. Obviously, she's part of the Red and the Green. She's been involved with Swamp Thing, Constantine, a couple others. So, very cool character. And it's interesting that they brought Orchid in a version of her into the animation, but she was the spirit of the House of Mystery, which was really kind of strange. So
yeah, she's really connected with Vertigo. I know Neil Gaiman did a brief miniseries about her.
So very cool. I like this group. I just think it's strange that this group transitions so quickly into TV. So New 52, I will say as a general rule, as much as comic fans hated it, it seems to have had an outsized influence on the TV and the animation.
Yeah, I would say it's very much a mixed bag. I didn't like them on the major characters, but they had all of these little, the smaller books that nobody read, which were often very experimental and very good. Demon Knights and things like that. So yeah, I'm not surprised. Creatively, there were some really good output of it, so I'm not surprised that Argus ended up making it.
Well, I have the whole runs for like Blue Beetle, Captain Atom. I thought those were pretty good, so it was
Mhm.
surprising, and I was upset, this is kind of going off on a tangent, but I was a little upset when those got cut so short and we kept getting a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that I didn't want to read. So
Yeah, I'd stopped reading DC up until Rebirth. After that.
cool. Number 6, Hive. So this is another DC Comics. The hierarchy of international vengeance and extermination. Everybody out there, you're going to know exactly who this was associated with. It was created by Marv Wolfman and George Perez. And the minute I say those two names, you have to know that they were up against the new Teen Titans. So their first appearance,
major villains of the Titans. Yeah.
Yep. First appearance in New Teen Titans number 2. Now, I have to say, for my daughter loves Hive, and she was a little disappointed when I was doing this because she was looking over my shoulder that her favorite characters from Teen Titans Go, she likes Teen Titans, the animation, and then Teen Titans Go as well, were in this. I'm like, it's two different things, So.
Very, very different. I haven't really watched a whole lot of the animation, but I just absolutely love the original comics, and Wolfman and Perez are legends.
Definitely. So just going to go through these because there's quite a few. Feel free to jump in real quick because some of these are some pretty big names. So we start with
anything involving Wilson, I will absolutely jump in.
Yeah, so we have Queen Bee. A lot of people know her from Young Justice, but she's been around for a while. You have Adelaide Kane, who is
Deathstroke's wife.
Deathstroke's wife, yep, and actually took charge of Hive for a while, and then was a mercenary herself, if I'm remembering right. So,
They go back a long way, and mostly I think lately she was with the government, at least as of the Priest run. But yeah,
and she took his eye too, if I remember correct.
Yes, she did.
And then the Man.
Yes, Slade.
Yep, Deathstroke, Slade Wilson. I gotta give a little shout out to the Teen Titans animation. So Slade. So
one of my favorite villains, absolutely.
Absolutely. It's interesting how there is a lot of crossover between Hive and League of Assassins. So
yeah. Well, he has to get his contract from somebody, and Hive was elected.
Yep. Then we had Ravager, Grant Wilson.
Yeah,
also in there.
It led to his death, unfortunately. Hive got him killed, and this is the cause indirectly of the vendetta that Slade has had against the Titans for ages.
Definitely. Then Brother Blood, huge Hive villain. Very much involved. If I'm Judas Contract, if I'm correct, along with Deathstroke.
Not so much with Judas Contract, though he has showed up very, very majorly in New Teen Titans. I would say he's like one of the other big villains in addition to Hive and Slade and Trigon.
Yeah. And then, of course, you have Talia, who seems to pop up everywhere when she's not, like, jetting around and getting it on with Batman. So
yeah. Or pestering poor Damien, trying to get him to go to school.
Yeah, exactly. So she's everywhere doing it. Between her and Catwoman, who seem to pop up wherever they need to pop up and be part of whatever groups they need to be part of. So.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to number 5 then, and now we're back to Marvel. So AIM, big one.
Yep.
And I have to say, Advanced Idea Mechanics. This one, I love AIM in the comics. I love AIM in the animation. And if I had a major complaint with the MCU, it's how I think they did AIM dirty in Iron Man 3. I really wish they would redeem AIM in the MCU, but like I said, that's a whole other podcast. So AIM, we got 2 legends on here now, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And their first appearance was in Strange Tales number 146. I believe that is in the 60s. So
yes, I believe so, yeah.
Yep. And notable agents. So I know that beforehand we were talking, a lot about this specific Scientist Supreme.
Yeah, Monica Rappaccini, yes. Basically, she was kind of based loosely off of a Hawthorne story called Rappaccini's Daughter. That was the whole story. Fred Van Lente created her, and also a character called Carmilla Black, who was the Scorpion, not to be confused with Matt Gargan. the idea of the Scorpion character is that, you know, she was basically genetically engineered by AIM to be able to like absorb poisons and all these sorts of things. So like she could generate toxins through her arm, and she can also survive just about any kind of toxin. And Monica created her, and yeah, she's she's not a very nice mother, put it that way. You know, she's very much about like the cause and all of this, and she did try to recruit Scorpion into the operation, but you know, Carmilla turned against her and defeated her.
Now, one of the things I've always found very interesting about AIM is that you pretty much only know, most of the time, you only know one named character in AIM at a time, and then everybody else is kind of like underneath the hood, you know? So only the person out front is their identity is actually revealed, which I think is kind of fascinating and kind of creepy at the same time.
Yeah.
So only really the Scientist Supreme, you know who they are. So then you have these other Scientists Supreme, Robert DaCosta and Andrew Forson.
Roberto da Costa, Sunspot. As I am a huge New Mutants fan, as we've discussed, and I will say, if you're kind of curious as to how he ended up being the head of AIM, read Al Ewing's various Avengers books. You know, they really focuses a lot about how Roberto took over the organization and tried to turn it to good at one point. It didn't work out very well, I will say that. But yeah, it was. I will say Ewing is one of the better writers on this character that I've seen in a while.
And I think it's fascinating with this Scientist Supreme in particular is they tried to rename the organization to America Idea Mechanics, and then
which is funny because Roberto is Brazilian, but
and then Osborn tried to get into it. And fold it in and get control of it. So yeah, it's really fascinating. It goes back to Dark Avengers and all that. Really good stuff. A lot of stuff. It's very complicated to get into, but if you got the time to read it, it's really cool. And then this is my personal favorite. A lot of people think he's ridiculous, but I love this guy, MODOK. You know, just absolutely fantastic. It's right out of old school comics, but I still think I think you could do this on the screen today. And it would still, you know, if somebody did the CGI right, it would look cool. And it's just eerie and everything. And I love this guy. I think he's just amazing.
Yeah, he has a really great design. I mean, he's really, I think he was very much the inspiration for Krang from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, there's just something about a guy with a big giant head, you know, literally and figuratively, you know, trying to take over the world for science. I just love it.
Well, didn't they also do something similar to Krang with Arnim Zola at one point as well?
Yeah, he seems to be like a cross between the two.
Yeah. So, but yeah, MODOK is great, and it's funny because the way MODOK is, he can be comical, but then he can be very sinister at the same time. You know, so he's got multiple.
He's very versatile in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like him a lot. So yeah, that's AIM. So here we go. We're getting into number 4. So now we're back to Mignola again. So this is the BPRD, the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense. Once again, from Hellboy universe, Dark Horse Comics. I think most people know this. My wife definitely knows this. Like I said, these top 4, my wife could name even without following comics. You know, she's a big Hellboy fan. She's seen all the movies. We quote it all the time. And I love Hellboy and absolutely adore Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense. So
awesome.
Yeah, created by Mike Mignola, and first appearance in the very first issue of Hellboy ever. Hellboy Seed of Destruction. Hellboy, as if you don't know, is a BPRD agent for a long time. Eventually, he does leave the BPRD, but that's how he started. He was brought in there by Trevor Broom, Professor Broom, and you know, who raised him and everything. So he was basically raised to be a BPRD agent, and I can't say enough about this. I don't want to go into a whole tirade, you know, our whole spiel about it, but I love this. And it did spawn its own comic book series, and
number of them.
Yeah, and so, but there was a long running series, BPRD, Hell on Earth. You know, there was Hellboy Hell on Earth, but that was also part of Plague of Frogs, which was in BPRD and a bunch of other stuff. So Yeah, a lot. They got a lot out of it, and they're still getting a lot out of it, which surprised me because I thought when Hellboy died in the comics, spoiler, that would be it. But no, they're still writing Hellboy stories. So.
Well, I mean, they've got tons and tons of time, to show in Hellboy's life.
Yeah.
So, so they got all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So notable agents. There are a ton of BPRD agents, much like the number one person at the beginning of, or at the end of this list, the number one organization. But so obviously we have Hellboy. He's an agent. Abe Sapien. Does a really neat explanation. I think most people know who Abe Sapien is.
Yeah,
so,
he's great.
Yeah. Liz Sherman. Most people have seen her in the movies. Her character in the comic is a little bit different, but still a great character. Very similar. Her powers are the same. Wonderful. Then there's Roger the Homunculus. And it's interesting that I put those two together because Roger and Liz have a very tumultuous history together in the comics.
Yeah.
So with what goes on with them. So and I'll leave it at that. You got to check that out. But suffice it to say, Hellboy came close to killing Roger at one point because of what he did to Liz. So Johann Kraus. This character is very interesting. He's different than what you saw in the second Hellboy movie, but his powers are very much the same. But very cool. Yeah, I don't know.
I like the visual design.
Yeah, he's got much of the same power set, but he's not. He doesn't have the same personality for the most part in the comic books as they gave him in the movie, which did surprise me. This last guy, Ben Damio, he's also in the most recent movie, so I don't know if you've seen that one.
I keep hearing that it's not very good.
Yeah, if you could tell by the animal behind him, his cool thing is he's a soldier, but he has the ability to transform into like a werewolf type animal. So he's a trained agent. He can do all that, but he can transform and heal and stuff like that. He was a BPRD agent, and he was wounded by a monster that basically gave him this curse. So very cool. And yeah, I mean, that's classic Mignola, classic Hellboy design back there. So very cool group. This is, I mean, everybody who's seen my stuff know this is the kind of stuff that I'm really into. John Constantine, Justice League Dark, Hellboy. So this is right up my alley. But all of these things I love, but this one definitely is one of my favorites. So, all right, now moving on to number 3, Star Labs, the Scientific and Technological Advanced Research Laboratories. Now this one's a little difficult for me. I put them on here because you hear about them all the time in DC Comics,
Yeah. So I would say, yeah, they're the kind of group that, provides support for a lot of the heroes, and they're kind of in the background a lot of the time, and, they just do certain things behind the scenes and that affect the story. And, sometimes they have technology that gets stolen, or, they're helping Superman with something, that kind of stuff. But, they're a big feature in DC, and, they're definitely a big part of the Flash TV show. So.
Yeah, they're definitely, I'm familiar with them in the comics, and then obviously from the Flash TV show. They're not like they are in the Flash. I don't know of a time when the superheroes have actively worked for them, other than there's one on here that is kind of like on the border of being a superhero, and we'll get to him in a second. So let's get right into it. Yeah, so it's created by Len Wein. I was not familiar with his work until I started researching this, and then drawn by Kurt Swan originally.
Huh.
And the first appearance was in Superman 246, which I don't think surprises anybody, because...
Yep. Superman and Star Labs go back a long way.
Yeah. And I'll be perfectly honest, most of these characters I am just vaguely familiar with. I might have heard their names. Emil Hamilton is the one that jumps right out at me. Because he was also in the Justice League TV show, the animation. But the one that surprised me is this guy right here.
Sniper Car, yeah. He's best known as being the Justice League sidekick, kind of like the Rick Jones of the JLA.
Yeah. He was tangentially involved with Star Labs for a while. and Batman found out that he was spying on the Justice League through Star Labs for the government. But what was interesting to me is I've known Snapper Carr for a long time in different iterations. Most of the time he's presented as a reporter in the animation, you know.
Okay.
But he actually has superpowers. He has a latent.
Oh, does he?
He has a latent metagene, so when he snaps his fingers, he can teleport.
Huh.
So
that's new to me.
Yeah, I did not realize that either. So I guess you learn something every day. So,
you must have been taking cues from Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a little surprising to me, but this feels a little bit of a letdown compared to the others. But the reason that I put it at number 3 is because it's such a backstop to everything that seems to go on in DC Comics. If anything is tech related, it goes through Star Labs for the most part. So
pretty much.
Okay, cool. So I have to say, this is the last DC entry. One of the things that was surprising me, it was, for my list anyway, how many of the top entries were DC Comics, or not DC, Marvel. So
yeah, Marvel really loves their alphabet soup.
Yeah, and these last 2 people will definitely know not only from the comics but also from the movies. So let's get right to it. Last one, Sword. Now I went with the comic version of what SWORD stands for. This is what it's always meant to me. I'll be honest, was this one of the things that kind of bugged me in WandaVision, because to me,
one of many.
Yeah, SWORD stands for Sentient World Observation and Response Department. I love, and let's get right to it. SWORD was created by John Whedon and John Cassaday, and the first appearance was in Astonishing X-Men number 3, and it was in
that run. That is one of the better X-Men modern X-Men runs. That was really great. It's very accessible, really well done.
Absolutely outstanding. It is standalone. You can rate it as an arc, and it stands alone by itself. It first gives you stuff like Order of the Break World. It gives you the whole Break World stuff. It's just absolutely amazing. And I agree with you. This is one of my favorite X-Men runs of all time, and there's quite a few X-Men runs that I like. And we got some characters in here, or some people associated with SWORD. First, right off the bat, is Abigail Brand, who to me is an absolute badass. I mean, I love her. And then the fact that she ends up dating Beast too, is just, this is cool.
It seemed like it came out of nowhere, but it's like, you think about it, it's like, okay, they did build up to it, so it's like, okay, I'm down.
Yeah, not to mention that you find out that the reason she has green hair and everything, she's not dyeing her hair, she's half alien.
Right.
So, which is really cool, and this idea that, for all of you who aren't familiar, SWORD in the comics, they're actually up above Earth in a spaceship that was seized from King the Conqueror, wasn't it?
I can't remember.
I believe so, and it's shaped
you
like.
You might be right. I don't remember.
Yeah, and it's shaped like a sword, So they're up there, so it's pretty darn cool. And so then obviously. Abigail was dating Beast, so Beast left the X-Men for a time and was part of SWORD as well, working with them. And then one of the big revelations, I don't know if we got it beforehand or if it came during this run, was that Lockheed wasn't just some like fantasy dragon. He was actually an alien creature.
Oh, that was established from the beginning. What we didn't know was like the depths of his connections with SWORD later. But he was always they found him on the Broodhorn world. That's how Kitty found him. He was in the Brood saga. So he came home with Kitty around that time. So they always knew he was an alien. It's just that nobody knew quite how smart he was, and nobody knew his connections with SWORD.
That's right. Wasn't he spying on the X-Men for SWORD?
I don't recall. Claremont obviously didn't know any of this at the time, so but maybe it might have been retroactively established that way. I don't.
Yeah, I seem to remember during this run in particular, the Joss Whedon run, that they made it sound like if he wasn't spying, he was giving information on what the X-Men were doing to SWORD.
He's a sneaky little dragon. I put nothing past him.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. And then eventually, Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, came in and worked for SWORD as well. So
and she was a member of S.H.I.E.L.D., so she's been a member of both.
Yeah, so definitely cool. So nice transition.
Another alphabet organization.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about them too. All right, we'll get to the honorable mentions, are the ones I left off in a second. But you said the names. That gets us to my number one, Shield. And once again, I'm going with what I commonly associate with the acronym. It's had many different meanings over the years, though.
Yeah, I don't even remember most of them. The one that you mentioned is the one that I remember.
Yeah. So Strategic Hazard, Intervention, Espionage, and Logistics Directorate. Shield has been around in so many different iterations in so many Earth, versions of Marvel timelines over the years. It's hard to say. It's hard to say who's not been in Shield in one form or another. So
I mean, just about every character at some point has worked with them, sometimes against their will.
Yeah. So once again, other than Mike Mignola, and Mike Mignola's was all in the same universe. You have the Legends. They created this as well. So created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. First appearance was in Strange Tales 135, once again from the 1960s. And like we said, everybody at one point in time seems to have worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. I picked some out that stand out for me. Obviously, right off the bat, you had Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. That was one of his first titles, when he worked for them, and then he eventually became the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Maria Hill, you were mentioning beforehand, I thought it was a great point. Depending on which version of S.H.I.E.L.D. you're talking about, he has various number twos, and two of them are on here. So the first one is Maria Hill, who, I don't know, you either love her or you hate her most of the time, don't you?
I used to hate her. I've come to love her, but I used to hate her. I mean, she's the person that is all about being by the book, and I think that's a good counter to Fury, because Fury is the guy that goes gung-ho and does things his way. She's more of the solid professional who keeps him in line, and I think that's a pretty good balance.
Yeah. I still have a hard time forgiving her for what she did to Cap during Civil War, but I definitely
that was when I didn't like her. That was when I didn't like her for sure, but she's become a little bit softer in more recent years.
Definitely. Then I think I'm channeling my favorite version of Carol Danvers here. I don't reference the other one too often. So you have the Miss Marvel version of Carol Danvers, but she's also been involved with S.H.I.E.L.D. as Captain Marvel as well.
Yeah, and even before she was a superhero, she was involved with them. A lot of her backstory with Wolverine was before she got her powers.
Yeah. So, and then this version of Carol Danvers ended up dying at the hands of Rogue, I believe. So that's how Rogue got her powers.
Not quite dying, but it felt like death. She got her powers and her mind absorbed into Rogue. And then she basically was kind of a vegetable for a while. There was a story where she got her mind back, but not quite the emotions connected to it, and then she was out with the Starjammers and all that. But that's a whole nother pod if we really wanted to get into that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, we've kind of gone through this pretty quick. If we really wanted to do a deep dive, this could take, a long time. So, then we've also had Bucky Barnes, Winter Soldier, has been involved with S.H.I.E.L.D. at different times, different iterations. Usually not in Earth 616. It's usually alternate Earths. But, he's definitely been involved with them. This is one of my favorite characters in S.H.I.E.L.D. Also, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Barbara Morse, Mockingbird. I love her character. I love her power set.
I liked her in West Coast Avengers.
Yeah. I liked her as an Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. too, though. But, I definitely liked her at West Coast Avengers. She's really good. Wolverine has done a lot of stuff with S.H.I.E.L.D. Usually it's the James Howlett version of Wolverine, though. So
he goes back with Fury a long way, and I think it's been very, very clear that he was doing stuff while he was with the Canadian Secret Service and working with them, and we know that he worked with Harold Danvers and things like that. So
definitely. And then this is the other number two that is often used for Nick Fury, going all the way back to Howling Commandos, Timothy Dum Dum Dugan. He's really old school character, but I like him a lot. And any dude that's going to rock the bowler hat, he's fine.
He looks really cool. I was recently reading Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos, and he was pretty good in that. I will add one other character that's not on your list, and that is the Black Widow. Natasha Romanova. She is, very much considered one of their more active agents, both in the comics and in the MCU. So they kind of got that right. And she definitely has very strong connections with Logan, with Bucky, all these sorts of characters. So she's I would consider her as much an important part of S.H.I.E.L.D. as the others.
Absolutely. And there's quite a few others that I left off. I mean, there are even other units mutants. I know that Raven, when she went under Raven Darkholme, some Mystique.
Mystique, yeah.
That was part of that for a while. There's been others as well. So I even think Ilyana Rasputin was part of Magic.
It's probably in one of those X-Men stories I haven't read.
Yeah. So
I have a pretty bad blind spot when it comes to 2010's X-Men.
Yeah. So like we said, just about everybody has done something for S.H.I.E.L.D. at one point or another, but definitely Black Widow. I can't believe I left her off, and you're absolutely right. She's huge parts of S.H.I.E.L.D. So great. And then even the Hawkeye, I think, has been part of S.H.I.E.L.D. at different points in time. If I remember correctly.
On and off.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a kind of a checkered past in the comics, which is kind of one of the things I don't like about the MCU Hawkeye is that he doesn't really feel like the comics Hawkeye too much. So
I like him as kind of like the braggadocious, carny guy. I kind of think of him as the Han Solo of the Avengers, more or less.
Yeah,
he's kind of that guy.
Yeah, but Fury definitely because of Fury's nature when he was running S.H.I.E.L.D., pretty much he could blackmail almost anyone into doing what he wanted. So
basically, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, cool. So that was my list. Before we jump off, though, I know that once again, I want to say I'm so glad that Steve came in, jumped in, and helped me. I was afraid that I was going to sit here and just be droning off information. It's great when I can have this back and forth with my friend and talk about this kind of stuff. Sure. This is my list, though, and I know that I missed some. So I wanted to open up to you if you wanted to throw out some honorable mentions. I don't have anything, display for it, but if you want to talk about a few that you would throw in there.
Yeah, I'm just kind of going off the top of my head. One that really kind of came to my mind reading Excalibur recently is WHO, the Weird Happenings Organization. They basically took a unit from Doctor Who and basically made them an organization in Excalibur. I just thought it was really, really interesting. They even had a character who's kind of like a stand-in for the Doctor, who is called Alistair Stewart. But the thing is, the name came from Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart from Doctor Who. So they took the name of the Brigadier, gave him to their Doctor character, which I find hilarious. And then the Brigadier in that is Alice Ann Stewart, who they made the twin sister of their Doctor. I just was like, okay, run with that. You can do that. And what was even funnier, and if you look through my Twitter, you'll find it, is I point out that the Alistair Stewart character in Excalibur looked like David Tennant, and this was 10 years before Tennant was the Doctor. That just makes me absolutely laugh. It was probably completely unintentional, but I just love these funny coincidences. So that's one of them. We talked about Hydra.
I have to say that I'm planning on getting into Doctor Who this summer. I watched a couple episodes just a few weeks ago. Steve is the Doctor Who guru, and if you haven't checked it out, go to Comic Crusaders and see his beginner's guide to Doctor Who. It's amazing. It's really, really good.
The newcomers guides are really interesting to do. I'll do them every so often. Mainly the idea is like to take these big franchises that seem impenetrable and try to give everybody an accessible way in and an understanding what the series is. So that's what I'm doing with these regularly.
Cool. So you were mentioning Hydra. Another one.
Hydra. Yeah, I think you can't really talk about S.H.I.E.L.D. without talking about their opposite number. Everybody kind of thinks, oh yeah, they're basically Nazis, and yeah, they are, because they're run by, usually by Wolfgang von Strucker, that's the guy who started it, and usually it's run by one of the other main Nazis, either Zemo or the Red Skull or somebody like that. But and they're considered that. But I like the way that they look. I love the green outfits that they wear. I just think it's great. The whole idea of chop off one head and two more will take their place. It's just so corny and one of the most Silver Agey things you can imagine. But I love it. And as bad guys, they're just they're great. And they were actually they were the basis for Cobra in G.I. Joe. That was actually a repurposed version of Hydra.
I didn't know that.
Even using the snake motif, yeah.
If you look at Zemo, though, I mean, it's pretty obvious now that you think about it. It looks, versions of Zemo, not the one with the ski mask now, but when he used to have the hood on,
Yeah, the Cobra Commander with the hood and Zemo with the hood, yeah.
Cool.
I'm trying to think like a couple one for DC. I don't think we can.
The EOD you were talking about?
The DEO, yeah.
DEO, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, the Department of Extranormal Operations. These I think that they came around like in the mid '90s. I remember Young Justice It was where I remember first running into them. But they kind of expanded since. I know they were in Chase. I know that they were in various other books. I know that they were connected with Batwoman at one point. So yeah, they've become like the Shield of DC.
Is that the group that had Mr. Bones?
Yes, he was their director. Okay. Yeah, that was the guy that ran them. Yeah. So I would kind of go with that. And then there are a couple. Oh yeah, the Time Variance Authority, and I think when you kind of came up with like the one with the Marvel Zombies one,
Armor.
Yeah, Armor. Yeah, that kind of got me thinking of the TVA, because they're usually the people that are trying to control the timelines and make sure they don't get out of hand. And the funny thing is that it's an entire organization run by clones of Mark Gruenwald. I am not kidding you. All the guys in there are low-level bureaucrats, and they look like Mark Gruenwald. I just thought that was the funniest thing ever, especially if you know that Mark Gruenwald was the guy who was the continuity cop of Marvel for like the 80s and 90s. So he was basically doing in this fictional universe what he did in the comics. It was hilarious.
Well, I think one of these days we need to do another top 10, but just on obscure or weirdly named organizations, because then there's tons of those. You got Cadmus, you got all different kinds of ones that don't fit in. The Time Authority. Was it the Time Lords?
The Time Variance Authority.
Yeah.
And I will throw you one extra one. This is a Hydra offshoot. The DOA, the Department of Occult Armaments. So this is the occult arm of Hydra. I just love the acronym DOA, as in...
Now, how have I never heard of that one? That sounds like something...
They're kind of obscure, but yeah.
I have never heard of the DOA. I believe. Cool. That sounds really cool. Yeah, so as you can see, there's all sorts of these. They pop up through comics all the time. People are making them up. I'll be honest, in my writing in science fiction, I do it. In fact, I've got an SSS organization in the newest thing that I'm developing called the Soul Scientific Symposium. And it was kind of, I'm not going to say I stole it from Mike Mignola, but it was influenced by Mike Mignola. So,
I have in my book Blitz, I have a group called Enigma. It was extra normal intelligence gathering and monitoring agency. Yeah, that's what
awesome. Yeah. So yes, we do stay up nights thinking of these things.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I think we're good. I think that was pretty cool. All right. Yeah. So thank you all for tuning in. This has been a special edition of our Tuesday Top 10s. And I am going to officially hand it off to Steve for the next Top 10 here. So,
okay.
And I will get you the list on what we got. But please comment down below when this comes out on social media. Give us some shout outs. Tell us what kind of stuff that you would like to see, or give us feedback on this. And in the meantime, I'd like to thank Steve Shadewing Sellers for joining me. I always love to talk comics with him.
Yeah, I'm always glad to be here.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. I caught him on an off day. He's a really busy man, but he was gracious enough to join me. And so on behalf of Steve and myself, I'm Nemesis. Thank you very much for watching this presentation of Comic Crusaders, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. We hope you've enjoyed this Comic Crusaders production. For real-time news on all things pop culture, please feel free to follow us on social media. For articles, original content, merchandise, and more, please go to www.comiccrusaders.com. Also follow along with all of the websites of the Comic Crusaders family. As always, if you like this content, please click like and subscribe to the Comic Crusaders YouTube channel.